Hey, you're listening to Becoming More Me, the podcast that is all about helping high achieving entrepreneurs and professionals like you reclaim your power, align with your purpose, and create a life of abundance, joy, and ease without the anxiety and overwhelm. I'm your host, Teresa Lear-Levine. I'm an EFT master practitioner, law of attraction and mindset coach, and energy strategist, here to guide you on your journey to inner peace and fulfillment. If you've ever felt stuck in your personal or professional life, or if you're ready to tap into your full potential and break free from limiting beliefs, you're in the right place. Today's guest is someone whose story and journey are truly inspiring. Pam Rader is a certified strategic intervention life coach, leadership development facilitator. She's built thriving yoga communities, created a powerful teacher training school, and continues to impact lives as the founder of Shift Labs Incorporated. And Pam is living her dream life on her acreage in Okanagan, surrounded by her husband, children, goats, and dogs. And she's here today to share how she made it all happen, and maybe how you can too. So get ready for an episode that is packed with life lessons, empowerment, some laughs, and actionable insights for your personal transformation. It all starts now. Hey, Pam, I'm so glad you're here with me today.
I'm grateful to be here. Thank you for having me.
Oh, it's my pleasure. I always love to start by learning a little bit more about who you are outside of business and everything else. What is life like for you on a day-to-day basis? Who do you enjoy spending your time with? What are your hobbies?
Yeah. So I live on an acreage in Peachland, BC, Canada. And we bought half of my parents' acreage. So they live next door. And my husband and I built our dream home on this property. And we've got 3 goats and 2 dogs and 2 cats. I own a yoga studio. You know, I love yoga and fitness and hiking. I have 4 sons and I love to spend a lot of time with my children. And I read a lot. I have a goal this year of reading 60 books this year, and I'm at 54, so I'm getting there. And I mostly take a lot of joy in expanding my capacity in life,
Mm,
learning and growing and challenging my limiting viewpoints. I guess I'm kind
yes.
of a nerd that way.
Oh, I love that. I have the same book goal. I read voraciously, especially if I can do it on Audible. I voraciously read your book recently, Through
Ah,
the Cracks, and loved it. And yes, I love that we share the 4 sons also. How old are your kids now?
so 36, 34, 31, and 25.
Nice. That's
Yeah.
awesome. Yeah, your career is woven together. Leadership, yoga, coaching. What was the catalyst that made you realize that you could merge all of these into a thriving business of helping people seek their truth and setting them free?
It wasn't like I ever thought of doing any of the things that I'm doing. I was blessed with the gift of many challenges. In my first marriage, my husband was very ill with addiction and mental health. And I was very young, like 19, 20, 21 in that period. And it left a lasting imprint on me. When I left the marriage, he was extremely violent, wound up going to prison for his crimes against me, and I was left with a 1-year-old child and a lot of unhealed stuff. I hadn't even had a chance to confront my insecurities of being a teenager in a normal society yet,
Right.
and then had all this trauma perpetuated on me for a couple of years, and I walked one foot in front of the other and tried to make life better for my son, but eventually realized like I need some help. And I started practicing yoga. I was always into fitness, but and I taught like aerobics, old school step aerobics back in the day. Remember that?
Oh yeah.
And I taught fitness classes and that sort of thing. But I came across yoga and particularly Baptiste yoga and started to really get some traction in like, ooh, I've got some stuff to heal. So
Mm.
as I was practicing and feeling better with myself, I thought, this is really wonderful. I'd love to teach this. And so started to teach yoga and realized like this really helps a lot of people. So eventually I worked with my teacher, Baron, extensively and became certified at kind of the highest level that I could in that organization. And I thought, like, I'd like to share this with more people. So I started training teachers and I opened a yoga studio. And I saw the impact of all of that on the world around me, my small world around me and
Sure.
my community. And I saw these people walking through the world being better in their families and having an impact in their community. And I was like, that's really amazing. But only 8% of the world does yoga. So I only have access to 8% of the world, 8% of my world. And there's like 10 yoga studios here. So that's a very small percentage of the world that I can impact through yoga alone. So how the heck do I share that with others? Well, through training teachers, I'd learned a lot about facilitating and manage coaching people. So I went and trained with Tony Robbins to become a coach, and then with Bob Proctor and a whole bunch of other things. And I thought, I want to be able to expand this work, this universal truth out in the world to people who might never step on a yoga mat. So started one-on-one coaching. And then I thought, as I do as an entrepreneur, well, I wonder how if we could change like corporations, if they had some of this heart-led
Hmm.
work, this heart-led self-leadership, how would it feel to go to work? And so I started creating programs for heart-led leadership development. And I created Shift Labs. And from there, I was asked to write a book. So I did. I wrote another book, which just got released last week. I continue to kind of challenge the boundaries of what's possible. And at no point in my life, Teresa, did I ever look at myself as a young woman and say, I'm going to be a coach or a leadership development or a
Right.
teacher. I went to university to be a teacher until I realized I didn't really care for other people's kids that much. So, uh,
Same.
yeah, I was like, I call them OPKs, other people's kids. I don't know. And
That.
I was like, so I had the right idea, I guess, in teaching, but I just didn't know. I couldn't have dreamed this up. I feel like the universe has just given me nudge after nudge. I have a natural curiosity, a desire to expand, and I'm certainly not fearless, but I've been forced to practice courage in my life enough times that I'm willing to take myself further than a lot of people generally are because
Right.
I've come up against that terror barrier many times and climbed over it, and I'm willing to go there. So I still feel
Yeah.
at 53 years old that I'm just getting started, and that
Me
I don't
too.
know where it's all going to lead, honestly, because I couldn't have dreamed any of this up.
Yes. It's kind of better not to know because it's usually we can get a better outcome with the things we don't even realize are possible. So, I was just recently on your podcast. We were talking about these nudges and how we don't listen to them a lot of the time and so forth. So, what do you think made the difference for you between the nudges that you kind of pushed aside, maybe in regards to personal relationships and things like that, and the nudges that you've followed with your business aspirations and things?
Good mentorship made the difference. I have a teacher that I greatly respect, and he called me out on the truth a lot of times, and maybe not even me directly, but in a group setting. Baron would say things like, you're playing small, or you're fooling yourself, or like, how are you getting in your own way? And he would just so lovingly, but very straightforward, just continue to call me on my shit. And there's something in me that none of us love to be criticized, and we all love to get validation and all of that. But there was something in me that recognized it as loving rather than criticizing. Like, it felt
Right.
like truth when he said it. And so I had mentorship that I trusted. And it wasn't like I put him on a pedestal or anything. I just
Mhm.
realized, like, every time I've listened to some sort of nudge to look deeper and find the truth and confront my inner no and confront my inner fears and all the BS I tell myself, life has worked out better for me. And so I've continued, even at times like I couldn't afford to go to my first training with him. It was the time, it was 2010, I think, and when I went to train with Baron. And It was 3,500 American dollars, which is like $1,005 in Canadian for anyone listening. That's girl math, but it's about that. And that was not including flights or like anything. And I had
Yeah.
4 kids at home and I was like, how am I going to justify this? But I made the leap
Yeah.
and it
I think I
started
remember
something.
that story somewhere. You have to like borrow money or something to.
Yeah, well, I just said I didn't know how I was going to do it. If I had to get another job, I would. And then I was at my parents' house one day, and my dad, who is my both my parents are entrepreneurs. My dad owned a business where he manufactured elevators for disabled people because we had a neighbor who became disabled when I was a child, and he wanted to help him.
Oh,
And so my dad said he gave me a check for the amount and said you can pay me back and teaching me old guys yoga or something. And so I had an
yeah.
encouragers, and I had mentorship. And so I believe that it's my duty to be an encourager of others and to help nudge other people toward living their most authentic lives and their most expansive lives because I had the blessing of, some people look at my life and say, oh, wow, you've had a lot of hard things. And I say, yeah, but I also have all this support and all this encouragement and mentorship in my life. So it's kind of a perfect storm.
Absolutely. What inspired you to write your first book, Through the Cracks?
So my son Nicholas was the child of my first marriage, and from the time he was little, I could see that there was trauma. He had witnessed a lot of trauma from his father, and his, growing up with knowing your dad went to prison for trying to kill your mom is kind of a heavy thing. He had
Yeah.
a bit of a chip on his shoulder, even at a very young age. And then in his early teens, started really experimenting with drugs. And then really quickly, I recognized like this isn't normal experimentation. This is a problem. I could see it right away that he shifted into
Mhm.
addiction. And my journey had been to, through yoga, I had a platform. I could speak about what I was going through, and it was really helping other people. I'd say, I don't know what to do about my son. He's on the street. I have no idea how to handle this. And I'm at my edge here and and I'm doing the best I can. I don't know the answers, but I just want to be authentic. And people really responded to that. They wanted to know more and they'd come and say, me too. And I've got this other thing going on. And I realized that there was value in, instead of hiding and trying to play like everything was perfect, there
Yeah.
was value in sharing our stories. Now, I had no idea, no concept of wanting to write a book, but I have a very dear friend and colleague of mine who she is a writer and a filmmaker. And she came to me and said, you need to write a book. And I said, my story's not that special. Lots of women have been in abusive relationships. Lots of mothers have children in addiction. And she said, that's why you have to write your story because it's not special and people need to hear that they're not alone. And
Right.
then I was like, shit, now I have to write a book.
Yeah. Well, you might not feel like the story is special, but I do feel like the way that you told it was very special. I do think you have a definite way with words. And for me, I was just like hanging on, like, when can I listen to the next chapter? And the fact that you read it, I always love it when books are read by the author. I mean,
Mm,
when the author is good at reading books like you are.
mm.
I guess
Thank
I've had
you.
some where I've kind of wished the author didn't read them, but
Yeah.
that's a different topic. But you definitely have a gift with words and the way that you told and conveyed your story, for sure.
As you well know, we can shape our stories. And I believe that we will have the experience of life of the story we tell about that life. And so I wanted to tell the truth and then give kind of two versions in terms of I could be stuck. I could tell the story like, woe is me. It shouldn't have happened. My first husband held a knife to my throat and tried to kill me. My son was an addict and it was horrible. And it's like, no wonder that I'm so bitter and angry and I can't get ahead in life. Or I can tell the story of how it led me to confront my own demons, how it led me to confront my own insecurities, how it led me toward seeking healing and helping others. And isn't that beautiful that I had great spiritual teachers that came to guide me in my life? And either story could be equally true.
Yeah.
But I get to have the life based on the story I choose to tell. And so therefore I choose to say, thank God I married Steve Cassidy. And thank God my son was an addict. Because if not for that, I think I would be a self-righteous ass.
I love that. What has empowered you or helped you to let go of like the victim side of things, to let go of the woe is me and to embrace the obviously more empowering side of things and the perspective that you have? Because I mean, it can be kind of fun and nice and easy to linger in
Yeah.
the lowness, right?
I had kind of this opposite thing happen. I loathed being seen as weak. I did
Mhm.
not want to be a victim to the point that that's what ended up causing me to be in a situation where I was held hostage. And because I wouldn't ask for help, I didn't want to be seen as a victim. And I walked that path of being so strong for so long that it kind of all had to crumble apart. I had to go the other way. I never really adopted a victim mentality.
Mhm.
I had to actually lean into, I desensitized myself as a way to survive. I had to put one foot in front of the other, and I didn't want people to see me as incapable or soft or weak or a victim. I felt that felt atrocious to me.
Mhm.
But eventually, Teresa, I had to say, my work is to resensitize and to actually honor the fact that that young girl at 21 years old was victimized. I had to do it in a way that I had compassion and empathy, but I didn't get sucked into the story. I didn't want to live there. I didn't want to stay there. That's probably the best way to put it. I had to acknowledge what was not acknowledged and then choose not to stay there.
Sure.
Because sometimes people are tough and strong and then they make the shift. They're like, oh my God, that happened to me. And they stay in that victim mode. And it's understandable. It is easy and cozy and nice. And it would be a nice to take a day off from being so bloody tough sometimes. But I recognized that living there was limited. It's abdicating my power. It's actually saying that I give you, first husband and son and other people, the keys to the happiness in my own life.
Yep.
And that is a powerless place to stand. And that's not
Sure.
somewhere I'd like to live.
So how did you cultivate the vulnerability and forgiveness that you kind of needed to be able to mend and transform?
That's an ongoing journey. My son has been clean for 2 years now. It is amazing. It's a miracle. He was on the street, in psychosis, and we thought we were going to lose him. We were preparing for a call that he would die. But knowing that he was so sick for so long and having tried to help him in every way and it just not seeming to get there, I had no choice in my mind but to just figure out how do I just love him? How do I just love him without making him wrong, without needing him to be different? Because every time I talk to him might be the last time. And that was a really humbling thing. And I started to look around and live my life more and more that way. How do I just love someone? And I'm not perfect at it, certainly, but
So it can be hard.
it can be hard, yeah, especially with the people closest to us, right? Families and that we can get caught up in criticism and blame and all of that. But as I did that, I really had to confront my own, I was attached to how other people saw me as a mother. I wanted my parents to think I was a good parent. I wanted society to know that I had done everything I could. There was all these crazy things that I didn't even realize were playing in the background that I ended up having to confront through my son's addiction. And because I was teaching yoga and training yoga teachers, I had this platform to be able to share as I went along. Now, you know the old expression like see one, do one, teach one. I think that we only truly know a thing when we teach a thing. And so as I'm doing it and teaching it at the same time, I really started to get it in my bones
Yeah,
that vulnerability is a superpower,
sure
that
is.
sharing my truth unabashedly and like my fears and my doubts and the things that I fucked up. And I mean, I would walk into the yoga studio some days. I remember one time my son was staying with me for a month while he was waiting to get into treatment because I don't know what it's like in the States, but in Canada, it's a brutal epidemic. There's not enough beds. It's all the things. But he wanted to go to treatment, and so he's staying with me for a month. And it's very difficult to have a fentanyl addict living in your home with you. I felt like I was his jailer, not his mom. And I was on edge and on eggshells the whole time. And he was doing the best he could to be kind and respectful, but he's struggling with this addiction. And I walked into the yoga studio one day and someone asked me, how are you, Pam? And I said to the whole class, I have just spent the entire morning using every ounce of energy that I have not to punch my own kid in the face. And
Mm.
people are like, oh my God, that's so real. Like, I have felt that way. And thank you for sharing that. And what I realized was in just being real with people, it gave them permission to be real and they felt seen and heard and known. And I thought, I'm not just doing that for my son, I can do that for other people. And it relieves something in them. And it, it allows them to expand their soul in some way. And that felt like alignment to me. Like what I'm here to do is to
Yeah.
lead other people to be more at home in themselves. So yeah.
So, as you lead other people, you're leading yourself too. What are some of your non-negotiables in your daily routine that like really anchor you when
Mm.
things get chaotic?
Yeah, so I meditate every day. I sometimes do some hypnosis or in place of meditation, but I meditate every day. I practice gratitude every single day. I tell someone, I send a message to someone every single day of encouragement, just someone random that pops into my mind. I'll send them a message of encouragement.
Love that.
I exercise every day. I need to move my body. I understood that yoga saved my life without me even knowing it because moving, we know so much about somatic healing now. And I was like, oh, I was doing that. Well, I was doing yoga and talking about
Yes.
it. Yeah. So movement is essential and owning my shit is essential. So if there's an apology to be made, I make it. If there's a responsibility to be owned, I own it no matter how difficult it is because I believe that that's the essence of leadership. So those are my non-negotiables.
I love the role that yoga's played in your life over the years, and it's really beautiful to see how that's unfolded. If you were a yoga pose, which one would you be and why?
Utkatasana, which is chair pose, which is also translated as awkward intense pose. So certainly I felt awkward in terms of I like none of my friends do what I do. The friends I grew up with in high school, they all have regular jobs and
Sure.
like live and they have wonderful lives and I love them.
Hmm.
And like I just kind of went my own path and it was awkward and I'm forging it and people don't always understand it. But also that pose, if you imagine the shape, it's sometimes called thunderbolt as well. It's like sitting in a chair with your arms up and it represents man's ability to rise up from the muck toward divinity.
Yeah.
And so I feel like, yes, I've been maybe had my feet stuck in the mud at times, but that I continue to reach toward my higher self and source. And even when it's awkward and intense and I don't want to, here's the thing it's not that I'm special because I'm a leader and because I say it out loud that I do these things. I've found ways to hold myself accountable to continue to do that even when I don't want to.
I love that. That's beautiful. That's a great explanation there. With your acreage and all of the animals that you have, what role does nature and the animals play in your healing and growth in that space?
Yeah, it's everything. I work with some really fabulous spiritual teachers. My most revered and special friend teacher is Joe Foxstreamer, and he's an Indigenous medicine man from the Northwest Territories in Canada. And, he talks about how healing nature is, and he encourages me to go and talk to the grandmother and grandfather trees in my
Mm.
backyard but just how everything is energy and
Yeah.
we can get stuck in dark heavy energy but the trees want us to heal, the earth mother wants us to heal, and the closer that we are to those energies the more healing occurs. And so that is part of my non-negotiable practices too, is to be outside every day. I find animals just remind me to take myself lightly. They're so silly and goofy, and my goats they're so dumb and funny, and my dogs and my cats, they're like they just bring so much joy to my life, and they remind me to take myself lightly, to play a little bit.
Mm.
So Yeah, I love that. And it
Yes.
gives it common ground. I've always had like a lot of kids, right, around. And now that I'm an empty nester, I love to give love and I love to have love around me. And so it's a way that I can nurture, and that's through nurturing, I become more nourished.
Absolutely. That's so beautiful. So you've already written these two amazing books and your career is doing amazing things right now. For what's the next chapter look like in your life? Like it's not written yet. What would you call it? What's happening
So
next?
interesting. I'm really I coach people one-on-one. I have group coaching programs, all that kind of thing, leadership stuff, and I love everything that I do. And I continue to be nudged by the universe to do work in the realm of serving families who love people who struggle with addiction.
Sure.
There are so many, thankfully, we're starting to get enough, not enough, but more resources for people who struggle with addiction. And it's because there's more of a conversation around it, and maybe even to some degree, a destigmatization starting to happen. But what I know is that when addiction happens in a family, it's like a nuclear bomb got dropped in that family and it ripples out and annihilates everything. Like it doesn't just affect the person struggling with substance abuse. If the person struggling with substance abuse gets well and they come back into the family with the same dynamic, their recovery is precarious. We as families need to heal, but we need support and guidance and to learn where our part is and how to create loving boundaries and how to be, that it's okay to take care of ourselves in that process. So I've created a free group called Hope and Healing for Families. It happens every Thursday at 7 o'clock PST, where I've got two of my coaches that lead it. They're both in recovery to support families in addiction. And it's completely free. It's an amazing resource.
That's amazing.
But I keep being called. I got 5 calls this week from people in our community who have kids on the street and they don't know what to do. And so I'm at this crossroads now, like which way do I take my business and my career? And I'm doing what I always do, which is I ask source, I ask spirit, I ask my angels, guides, and spirits,
Yeah.
show me the way and I will surrender to that path. And so the answer to your question is I don't know. I I will continue to expand in the direction of serving humanity, of empowering other people. Which direction that takes, I'm not entirely sure at this point, but I will teach people how to lead themselves to more freedom.
I love that. So I'll make sure if you provide one for me that we give a link to that call so that people can join that if that would be of service to them.
Absolutely.
What
Yeah.
are some other places where people could connect with you, work with you?
Yeah, so you can find me on Instagram at Pam Rader, Rader. Also have, like you, have a school platform, SKOOL.
Mhm.
It's called the Shift Collective, and you can find anything that I offer. There's free yoga classes, meditations. I offer a Wednesday Wisdom Circle, which is also another free offering that anyone from anywhere in the world can join. It's 6:30 a.m. every Wednesday. I've done it for 4 years. I started it during COVID. Never missed a Wednesday, and we do a little teaching, a meditation, a grounding, and share gratitude. And you can find me at pamrader.com, shiftlabs.ca, Shift Power Yoga. I don't know, all the places,
All
Teresa.
the
I'll give you the
places.
links.
Pam's
Yeah.
everywhere, guys, which is such good news for us because she's a wonderful energy to be in contact with. So go
Yeah.
find Pam wherever you like to be, whether it's on social media or school or a website. And I'm so grateful that you were here today. Are there any closing words that you would like to leave or anything that has to do with you in your stage of becoming right now that you'd like to part with?
If I could offer anything, getting free from suffering doesn't mean that we live a comfortable life. Pain
Mm.
is inevitable,
Yeah.
suffering is optional. And so freedom requires that we continue to expand our capacity for discomfort. And I think that's not something that's talked about a lot. And in order to expand your capacity for discomfort, we need help. We need coaches like you, Teresa. We need,
Just like you.
EFT, hypnotherapy. We need coaches like me. We need mentors. We need encouragers. So, my tip for anyone is to go seek someone who's aligned with you to help you along the path because we're all in this together.
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you so much for being here today, Pam.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it, Teresa.
My pleasure. And to all of you listening, I know you have so many choices when it comes to the podcasts you choose to listen to. Thank you for choosing Becoming More Me. Thanks for spending some of your precious time with me today. If you loved this episode, please leave a review or simply share it with someone else who would get great benefit from it too. If you share on social media, please tag me so I can personally connect and thank you. Until next time, keep taking bold and brave steps towards becoming more of who you want to be in this world. You are capable, you are worthy, and you are enough. And if your inner critic is still trying to argue with those facts, hit me up. We've got work to do.